So a lot of people see my background and think it's strange that I do all these different things that I do, and I have my hands involved in seemingly so many different businesses that are unrelated to each other. But in my mind, it's really all about coalescing people around an idea. And I think that's generally business or any movement, frankly. If everything we do was focused on people, I think we will get everything we want out of life, even lots of stuff that isn't people.
Welcome to the Grow and Learn podcast, your go-to source for expertise and insights on a variety of topics: business growth, leadership, technology, personal and business finance, and more. We've curated a vast network of business experts ready to address your company's most pressing challenges. From corporate growth strategy to leadership, marketing strategy, sales strategy, branding, customer relations, technology, AI, IT security, and beyond, we connect you to the best experts for your needs. Reach out to us for more information or schedule a call at GrowNLearn.org to explore how we can support you. I'm talking to David Steele, a multifaceted entrepreneur. He's been invested in many companies ranging from a management, One Wealth Investment,
One Wealth Advisor.
One Wealth Advisor.
It's a financial life planning company.
Hi, welcome, David. You've been in. Let me just mention a few of the businesses that you're invested in. You have 6 restaurants, at least, in the Bay Area of San Francisco. You're invested in yoga studios, in this company, One Wealth Investment, that manages more than $1 billion in assets. You are a philanthropist. You're on the board of a few nonprofit organizations. I can't even enumerate all of the things that you're invested in. Maybe you can help me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I want to clarify, I'm not invested in these things. I'm an entrepreneur who's started these things. Sometimes I get investors to invest in these things, but I was involved in creating many of these things, and sometimes it does require investors who invest. But yeah, I mean, it's a distinction that's important to me, because whereas if we have capital to invest, we have to put it somewhere. But an entrepreneur is I think a bit more of a creative process than somebody who writes a check as an investment.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, One Wealth Advisors is my primary. Is the first business. It's my day job, if you will, and I have a restaurant business that I've created that now we have 7 restaurants and 250 employees, and a consumer packaged goods business. It's in 350 stores so far and growing, and that's a big growth part of our business. And I created a yoga studio company as well a lot of years ago, and I'm on the board of advisors of 4 different businesses. One called Noise Pop, that is a music production and promotion and festival creating company, and artist rock and roll band manager company, and a few other interesting things. So yeah, I have a bunch of different interests.
Not only interests, you're quite successful in all of these endeavors, and they're constantly growing, because from the time being of me receiving your bio, where you had 6 restaurants, now you have 7. So clearly it's your portfolio.
I think the PR firm probably misquoted that. The last restaurant we opened was about a year ago. So I think yeah.
Okay, so are you a very busy person, having all of these companies, running all of these?
I actually work about 30 hours a week. And the next logical question, of course, is, well, how can you do all this stuff with working 30 hours a week? And the answer is, I think, I'm very fortunate that I have amazing teams that I work with. And if I have a talent, I suppose it's the ability to come up with ideas, or work with others to come up with ideas, and then get teams to coalesce around a unified vision and to pursue growth in a sustainable way with different teams. And so I've empowered partners in each of these different businesses that I have my hands in, who are just absolutely amazing.
Mm-hmm. Why do you take time off your schedule? Yeah, clearly you have some time, luckily, but why do you have time off your schedule? Why do you take time off your schedule to podcast? What do you want to tell people?
I love that question, actually. So I've had a book or two in me that I swore I was going to write for a decade or more, because I really want to tell my story and my process to the extent that maybe it is informative or inspires others. That would be awesome, but I have decided that I don't really have the energy or the desire to write a book, and I do like to talk to people.
Mm-hmm.
It's more natural for me than sitting in front of a computer and writing, so this is me being on podcasts as a way to tell my story and share my ideas in the name of hopefully informing and inspiring others occasionally, and yeah, that's my motivation.
Fantastic. I do want to hear about your thought process, mindset thinking, and processes to build such a successful portfolio of businesses. Mm, Before that, I have also been looking at what you're doing because I also have a few books in me, but I neither have the time nor the desire to sit behind the computer and write all day long. So I was considering scraping information off of the videos that I've made for my other channel and my other platform, and letting AI create a book for me. It seems though they're not as exquisite yet, the AI programs that are out there, so they were not able to. I mean, there's still a lot of work to be done, but theoretically, if you have all the subs and you upload the subs, and if you train it well, it can write a book for you.
Yeah, fair. But it comes back to the question of what's the motivation? Like, what are you trying to accomplish? Just the act of writing a book. I'm not sure my message would be communicated to more people in a more efficient, effective way
I agree.
by writing a book that may or may not may not be read by anybody or very many people. And so this just feels like there's a little bit more juice from the squeeze.
Oh yes, absolutely. We're getting more of you, maybe not in full presence, in full body, but more
Well,
than
and
definitely more
also,
than in a book.
I use AI, I'm on my ChatGPT app 15, 20 times a day. I love it as my personal assistant. But from a creative perspective, at least at this point in time, it's really obvious
Yeah.
when somebody has over depended upon writing using an AI. And I'll be depressed when I figure out that something really magical and inspiring and sublime that I've read, I learned later that was written by AI. That's going to be a depressing moment in time
Mm-hmm.
for me. But maybe that's the direction things are going. But for now, the good news is you can tell when somebody uses AI to write.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's talk about your drive. How do you get so much energy, and where do you get your drive from to create so much?
Well, there's a difference between now and when I started. I mean, I started my financial planning practice in 1991, right out of college, a long time ago. And I did that because I had worked in restaurants all through high school and college. I grew up relatively poor, and so I started as a dishwasher and worked my way up. And I worked with a bunch of very creative artisans, chefs who weren't great business people. And so I had this assumption that uh, operating restaurants was a passionate but financially unreliable business. And I couldn't have economic security for myself. And so I went to the library and looked up the number one job in terms of income that somebody could garner from a four-year college degree as I just graduated, and it said stockbroker. And so I said, okay, that's what I'm going to be. And I was somewhat persuasive in my ability to communicate. And so I was successful at it, was very unhappy, even though I started making money and had financial security. I was really unhappy. And I had concluded that I was unhappy because even though I was effective at selling people investments as a stockbroker, I wasn't really adding value to their lives. It was more of a parasitic like relationship the way it felt to me. And so I began to investigate different areas in financial services where I could feel like I was adding value. And this idea of financial planning, fiduciary-like fee-based financial planning came up. And I took a pretty radical pay cut when I pivoted my career from being a financial product salesman to being a trusted advisor for clients. But it was sort of one client at a time, but little by little it became very lucrative. And it was very meaningful. I felt like we were really adding value. And so that was my original motivation, to not be poor. And I really think there's from an entrepreneur's perspective, I do some business consulting with people, and before I agree to take a project, I ask them questions about their financial backgrounds, very much like financial planning type questions. And show me an entrepreneur who has 3 dependents and no savings, who wants to start a business, and I'll show you an entrepreneur that has a high probability of failing. Whereas show me an entrepreneur that either has access to capital, doesn't have any dependents, and is able to really whittle down their expenses to next to nothing and take their time building a business the right way. That's a much higher probable success story. And so for me, when I had to satisfy my Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which is, get fed, be warm, be dry, maybe then pursue trying to be loved by people, and then I could move towards self-actualization. And my entrepreneurial endeavors really didn't begin until I knew I had my base needs satisfied. And so that, to me, is one takeaway for anybody, a lesson I'd like to sort of express to anybody, which is make sure your fundamentals, your foundation allows you to actually be an entrepreneur. I opened my first restaurant after only doing financial planning for 15 years. And I had a solid business, and my brother was my business partner at that time. He joined me a few years after I started, and we built up a great clientele, and it was reliable and certain. And I went to my brother and said, I have to scratch this entrepreneurial itch and go do this restaurant thing to see if I could prove that there is an intersection of fiscal discipline, financial discipline, and sustainability, and pragmatic business principles with artisanship. Can you integrate those two? Can there be a healthy tension between those ideals? And my first restaurant is called Flour and Water. It's like we use the plus sign instead of end, like the ingredients for dough. And turns out it ended up being one of the most successful restaurants in the history of San Francisco. And we then use that as a platform to build the rest of them. But again, had I not had the financial certainty, if you will, around my financial planning practice, it would have been really hard to be an entrepreneur. Had I had dependents at the time when I made the decision to open the restaurant, it would have been hard to take a step back from the financial planning business, because I would have people counting on me. So it's easier said than done if people don't have the right foundation for being an entrepreneur.
I agree with that. And I actually had a similar argument while talking to one of my previous guests that, we discussed the reason for failing for startups. And he claimed that despite of having finance, 76% of companies that are funded still fail after 10 years. So it's clearly not only finance, as I thought the majority would be failing because of lack of finance, but it seems that it's not the case, really.
Well, if we're talking about the venture capital community, I've got a little bit of a bone to pick with the venture capital community. And the bone I have to pick with that VC community, and I have a lot of VC friends, and many of them do great work. But one of the things that nobody talks about from the negative perspective is this idea called the power law. And the power law is something that the VC community uses without exception, which is to say they want quick failures. They want to know the outcomes within 10 years, because that's the life of the funds are usually 10 years long. And the power law is they want either failures or radical successes. And the problem with that type of influence that the VC investment dollars and advice for the entrepreneur is that it forces fast decision making. It forces maybe pursuing scale business when there's no foundation for the scale. It really promotes big risk taking, and it doesn't talk about the trauma that the entrepreneur suffers when he or she fails. It talks about the success stories. Of course, everybody talks about Google and Meta and et cetera. And oh wow, if you would have invested in the early stages, you would have made X. But it doesn't talk about the 999,000 failures to get to those couple of unicorns, and the blood in the streets emotionally for the entrepreneurs that failed.
I love this insight. Yeah. So you built your businesses with a human focus. I can't remember your exact term that you used, but it was something around care for people.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
I think all human beings are motivated by two things. One is their search for love. They want to be loved. And two is they want to feel valued. And with my businesses, I go into, and I think about the customer wants to feel loved and valued. A team member wants to feel loved and valued. Business is people. Business is people, full stop. Business is people. Tech companies want to remove people as much as they can because it allows them to scale because people are expensive. Fine, so be it. Different model, not my game. But nonetheless, they're still selling to people and they still require some people to run the business, even if they're trying to scale people out of to allow for less expensive labor pool or workforce, if you will. But nonetheless, I do see it as people. And client turnover is really expensive. Employee turnover is really expensive. And every time I hire some higher level position from the outside, rather than nurturing and promoting somebody from the inside, I'm disappointed, almost without exception. Whereas if we bring people into my teams and we nurture them and care for them and give them a path, and we grow the businesses to allow for people's professional growth as well. That is, they don't have to leave the company to feel like they're evolving their careers. They can stay at the company. We can check in with them and make sure that part of our job is to make each of our team members feel as though there's no company that they can grow better at than with us. And so our turnover is very, very low in my different businesses, certainly lower than industry average. And in the case of my financial planning company, our turnover is 0%. People just stay with us, and if we lose one client a year, that was a bad year.
One employee.
One client. We have 383 clients, and if we lose one client a year, that was a bad year. And we have not lost an employee, and I think it's been a decade.
Oh wow! So, do you assign this primarily to the culture you've built, or is the culture you've built backed by investments in your employees?
Well, listen, I think culture in a company, if anything, starts at the top, meaning I am co-founder and CEO of One Wealth Advisors. Nobody is more responsible for creating a culture in this company than I am. And I am co-founder and executive chairman of Flower and Water Hospitality Group. I am absolutely responsible probably as the CEO, my partner in the company that I started the company with. We're the most responsible for it. So I always believe it starts with it's at the top. And so if our focus is on taking care of people rather than profit being our primary motive, profit to us is we have faith that it will be there. We don't have to explicitly point to goals around profit. We don't. We point to goals around employee culture and doing great work for our clients and our customers. And that starts at the top. So it's from me and it's from my partners.
So you set up the pace, you set up the example by, your values and what you believe in. How is this translated? Simply by, people seeing the vision of the lead, or do you apply any processes to nurture this culture?
Yeah, I mean, for example, with my financial planning company, we're a little bit of a socialistic, capitalistic experiment in that every team member is on salary and every team member gets a 5% raise every year, no questions asked. When inflation was 9%, we gave everybody a 5% raise. But when inflation was 0 or 1%, everybody got a 5% raise. But everybody owns a percentage of distributable cash. We distribute cash every quarter. Nobody gets bonuses. So everybody owns a piece of distributable cash. And so what it does is it creates this one for all for one mentality. I've been critiqued by my peers and saying, you'd be much more profitable if you were sort of more focused on a little bit more of an eat what you kill mentality, which is how most of the finance world is set up. You bring in a big client, you get paid more. If a big client you lose a big client from your line of business, you get paid less. It's not how we operate. If I bring in a big client from my network, well, guess what? I don't get paid any more than that particular client increases our profitability and whatever my distributions are. That is to say, I don't really get paid anymore. And if I lose a big client, I don't get paid any less. And so nobody comes to work scared. Yeah. Everybody feels safe. And I would rather make less money if that's the binary and have everybody feel safe than make more money and have people feel scared. This is unpopular. You can imagine not everybody wants to work for us, right? Because some people have a more individualistic spirit about them. That's fine. So be it. And not every client for the financial planning company, our sort of hippy dippy way of being is not appealing to everybody. So it's not the only way to do things. It's the only way I want to do things.
Mm-hmm. I have heard of a similar model being done for decades in Bologna, Italy, where actually a lot of companies are community owned. They distribute revenues to their employees.
Wow. Yeah, in the United States, we have something called an ESOP plan, employee stock ownership plan, which is where the people who are the entrepreneurs that start the company can actually sell their ownership stake to all of the employees. And there's a trustee that gets put on the board. And I've actually looked into that. It's super intriguing to me. So I don't think it's the exact same thing as what you're describing in Bologna, but it is really putting the equity or ownership into the stakeholders' hands more than maybe a typical entrepreneurial startup business would be. Interesting.
So now that you've spread your entrepreneurial passions into other industries, but the one that secured you the base, the One Wealth Advisors, what are your other interests? You opened the restaurants. Is this your biggest passion at the moment? You have so many things. What are you more, or do you rank them, the passions?
I'll tell you what I'm passionate about now, as I'm in my late 50s, and probably for the rest of my life, is helping others achieve their dreams and their goals. I do think goal setting is human magic. I think just simply saying, this is the thing I want to do, or these are the things I want to do. This is what I want out of my life. And defining those goals, articulating those goals, maybe writing them down. I do think it's human magic. And I've done that for my whole life and with a lot of success. I've achieved everything I set out to achieve. I'm not the wealthiest person you're ever going to talk to. I still have to work. I still need an income, if you will, to live my lifestyle. But I don't really have any more financial goals. And frankly, I don't really have any more professional goals other than my passion around helping others pursue their goals. I get to do that with my financial planning company. We have 380 something clients. And so we help those clients achieve their, what we call financial life goals. But I think about my partners and my businesses, my team members and my businesses. I really want to help them achieve their goals. And when it comes to the board work I do, both in the nonprofit and for-profit space, to me, these are what my reason for being in their lives is to help them achieve their goals, not for me to achieve my goals. So I'm not really pursuing creation on my own anymore. What I'm doing is I'm helping others feel empowered to create and achieve.
Mm-hmm. And do you help people that you're already in contact with, such as, people on the board or in your companies, or do you consult them and advise them in some other manner outside of the companies that you're invested in
It
or
depends.
that you've created?
I probably do way too much pro bono work, which is, psychoanalytically rich territory in terms of my relationship with money and self-worth and all that stuff. That's for a different time, maybe. But when I have my antennae up and I sense somebody needs some help with articulating what they want out of life, whether it's as an entrepreneur or with financial planning or just as a friend, I'm often the first person to raise my hand. And if I'm let in, I love to go deep emotionally with people.
Mm-hmm. Do you want to create a platform out of that, or do you want to continue doing it? No. Mm-hmm.
I don't want to create a platform out of that because it's too much work. And I said earlier that I work 30 hours a week, and I'm very protective of that. There's 144 hours in a week, and if I work 30 of them, that leaves me with 114 hours a week to do other stuff that I absolutely love, and I really am protective of that.
Yeah. You touched a little bit on the topic of wealth mindset, and I'd like to go there actually, because this platform is about business, but I have another platform called Heal and Learn, where we do talk a lot about subconscious models and patterns and reprogramming the mind and wealth mindset and all that stuff. So I want to hear from somebody who's achieved a lot and has more than the base. You're very successful. Let's not undermine what you've achieved. And you still mentioned that has something to do with your wealth mindset. What did you mean by that? And let's talk a little bit about this, if you don't mind.
When I tell people, when I offer to do pro bono work for people, and yet I just said I'm very protective of my 30 hours, which means I'm giving some of those 30 hours for free. I wonder, I had said earlier also that I think people pursue wanting to be loved and valued. That's really at base, our only human motivation, in my opinion. I just wonder if I could or should be charging for my time, or saying no to more pro bono work, or charging what I can actually get for my work rather than often offering what I do for less than maybe I'm worth, because maybe I still am seeking to be loved and valued. It's a way of sort of validating my place in the world. I'm not a psychologist, and I don't have a ton of confidence in anything I'm saying right now, to be honest. But my instinct is, I have a friend of mine who's one of the most lovely people I've ever met in my life. And he's always, since I've known him, he's struggled with money, and he has a home maintenance business. And he's one of my pro bono things where I help him with his business plan. And we love each other, and we spend a lot of time together, and over meals, we'll talk about his business. And I keep hearing him say, oh, man, I ask him how he's doing. He's like, I'm so busy. And in the next breath, he talks about how he's struggling financially. And I'm thinking, well, raise your prices. Even if you lose half your business because your prices are double, you're going to be working half as much. So you're going to have more time, and you'll make the same amount of money. Or maybe you'll be perceived to be more valuable, because who wants to drink a $3 bottle of wine, even if it's good? You just perceive it's not good. And so there's a relationship with like perception of value. And I have concluded that he has, when I look at him, he has what I think are self-limiting beliefs and a sense of wanting to be liked and valued and self-worth that restricts him from really charging what he could get for his services. And his self-limiting beliefs maybe are related to childhood type modeling, that where he subconsciously feels, well, this is my life. This is who I am. I am never somebody who flourishes financially. I'm somebody who always just gets by financially. And then I look at myself and I think, okay, well, interesting. What about you? What, sure, you're more successful than he is as an entrepreneur and in business and financially, but what are your self-limiting beliefs? And I have that conversation with myself a lot, and I don't have answers, but it's interesting. It just simply by asking those types of questions of oneself, and in fact, if you're struggling in any areas of your life and you ask those questions, and it's a possibility that your answers are the cause, you may want to do some goal setting and some strategic planning to try to break through some of those things. So that's.
I have actually worked with quite a few people on reprogramming subconscious blocks. I'm not a psychologist either. I've learned a lot of methodologies that go directly in the subconscious mind, and I've led groups that work on specific topics. But first, I wanted to tell you that giving something for free doesn't necessarily mean that you may have some sort of a money block or anything or like a limiting belief regarding money. As a matter of fact, a lot of successful people provide services for free as a gift to their community. For example, I've heard plastic surgeons doing 10% of all the surgeries for free for people who cannot afford it but need it. Same for dentists. They're doing
Lawyers
work,
pro bono. I mean, I think pro bono, that term pro bono applies to the legal profession maybe more than any other. Yeah, I completely agree. I think what I'm after is, at what point is your pro bono work not any longer just about naturally wanting to give back in balance with your place in the world, and when does it go beyond that?
I think from the moment you feel that you're giving too much and you're depriving yourself of your own time,
I think that's
peace of mind.
I think that's right, and that's what I'm interested in. I don't have the answers for what the right amount of time or money or anything is. That's not. I don't even know that defining them is possible in terms of getting it accurate anyway.
Yeah.
But I do think if you look at your life and you feel like you're lacking something to make it as rich and textured and as strong as you need it to be, while at the same time over-indexing on giving away your services for free or for too cheap, there's probably something that needs to be done there.
Great. So is there something that you mentioned you've achieved in terms of success, monetary success, what you needed, professional success? Is there something else that you want to achieve, that you're striving for?
It's like I said earlier, it really is just helping others. And I'm not, I would imagine somebody hearing me say, I've achieved everything I want to achieve, might come across as it might be off-putting to people. They possibly, I mean, if I heard somebody say that, it'd be like, well, who the hell does that person think he is? He's not being honest right now. But part of it is related to my belief that our society really promotes greed and fear, for that matter. But it really is sort of about more and more and more, better, better, better. And I think that's good motivation when you're at the earlier part of your career and your professional and financial development, maybe that's good motivation, but we all know personally, or at least have observed people that it's not too much of a leap to say, like, why do they keep killing themselves to have more in the name of no future actual tangible benefits to them? The sacrifice, at some point in time, that sacrifice becomes, you're not getting much marginal gain for that pretty enormous sacrifice. So my point is that what I've done is I've done the mental gymnastics with myself to say, you know what, you could get more. And sure, do I mean money? Yeah, I could get more money. Do I mean things? Yeah. Do I mean more vacations or whatever? Yeah, cars. But I just mean there is a fine balance between at some point becoming somewhat satisfied, even though you don't have it all. And I think that is a really good practice for people. So I am constantly, even though I have a platform to continue to acquire more wealth, do more projects. You'll see me connected to more projects. I'll probably make more wealth, but it will be because I'm helping my partners create. I'm empowering them to create. So if we open more restaurants, it won't be because I wanted to open another restaurant personally. It's because our business needs to continue to grow in order to have this path for all of our team members to grow into. Therefore, we will open more restaurants. But my energy is no longer about, I have to go open a restaurant. It's about, I want to help my partners grow themselves professionally and personally.
Yeah.
So that's the difference.
In my observation from podcasting for close to 2 years now, it's specifically business people, because I've had this other channel for a longer time. I always ask the people why they podcast. And clearly some of them are consultants, coaches who wish to share what they offer, what they can offer in terms of services. But I am surprised very often by how many people that are successful. And I'm wondering, why are they podcasting? They all want to give back. It's really overwhelming sometimes how experienced and very successful people go on podcasts and want to share what they've learned, it's really about, I believe successful, intelligent people realize that there's nothing more to gain. Now it's about giving and overflowing.
Well, I think what you're gaining is feeling valuable and valued. And so we began this, you asked me why I'm on podcasts, and I want to give back. And really what's my base motivation is I want to feel valued.
David, is there anything that you would like to share? Anything else that I missed asking you and that you really wanted to share in this talk?
No, I want to emphasize that business and life, for that matter, is really around people. It's people. And if everything we do was focused on people, I think we will get everything we want out of life, even lots of stuff that isn't people. So, yeah.
Thank you. Good luck in helping more people and bringing their spark on. Thank you for sharing your journey.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to Grow and Learn. We hope that you found our podcast informative, engaging, and inspiring. Our mission is to help you keep growing and learning, and we hope that our conversations and insights have provided you with practical advice and useful perspectives. If you're looking for personalized support and guidance to help you achieve your personal or professional growth objectives, I offer a range of services to help. As a trusted management partner and mentor, I work with businesses in the process of transformation, looking for new streams of business, as well as M&A. With an extensive professional network of experts and mentors, I can bring on board the right person or team based on the specific needs of the company I'm working with. To learn more about the services I offer and how I can help you achieve your goals, visit my website at grownlearn.org. You can also reach out to me via email or social media. I'd love to hear from you. And if you enjoyed this episode of Grow and Learn, please subscribe to our podcast and leave us a review. Your feedback is important to us and it helps us to continue to create content that is relevant and valuable to our listeners. Thanks again for listening, and we look forward to sharing more insights and perspectives with you in the future.